Welcome to the Spectators Podcast. Here are your hosts, Corey and Jeff.
Well, welcome, spectators, to a new podcast and a new year. It is 2023. My goodness, I cannot believe it. It is episode 36 of the Spectators Podcast. My name is Jeff, and to my mic adjacent, wearing what I thought was a brand new Team Canada hat, but is not. It's just a very pristine and conditioned Team Canada hat, is Corey. How are you, my friend? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Jeff. I'm good, but I feel like we haven't recorded in so long, too long, and it's good to be back. It's good to be back on a new, fresh year. Happy New Year to everyone. I'm excited to talk a little bit about hockey again, a little bit about wrestling again on this podcast, and it feels like a lot of things have flown by since we last spoke, and there's a lot to talk about in the world of sports right now.
There is, for sure. We have been off for a little bit. Kind of unexpected. Life got in the way, as it does sometimes. So we're excited to be back. And for those new listeners who listen to us, and those who have been listening to us, we've been sort of changing how we do our podcast. We're on the video side and the audio side. So video side, we're on YouTube, and we talk about mostly wrestling and the NHL slash World of Hockey. So we'll be sort of breaking up some content, so it's a bit easier to digest. So we have been speaking of 2023. We're hoping to continue to give you guys great content. So we'll start off with the World of Hockey, so NHL and all that above.
While we start with hockey, I want to tell you something. I got something for all the viewers here. We got something fun to show you. So I was at Value Village today, and for those viewers who don't know what Value Village is, it's Canada's version of Goodwill in the United States. And I was just, looking around, and we popped into the knickknacks section, and we saw this really funny little, I guess they call it a gold bust of Mr. Bruce. There it is,
Cassidy?
Bruce Cassidy. And I had to pick it up. If you look at the back, I don't know if everyone can see, and you can see the numbers on the back, but I'll read it to you. Right here, it says nickname Butch, position head coach, and born May 20th, 1995. Pretty sure he's not younger than us, so they definitely made a typo on giving these out on
funny.
Vegas. So we can do our first unboxing on the podcast here. We thought this was really funny, and I mean it was like $5 or something, maybe even less, and maybe $8. I can't remember.
Must have gone to Vegas on a vacation.
They must have gone. Apparently, these little things here were handed out.
So for those who are listening on the audio side, it is a literal gold bust of what they tried to think it looks like Bruce. That does not look like Bruce.
It doesn't really look like Bruce Cassidy at all. It has a little Bruce Cassidy on the back. I don't think you can pick it up on the video, but it has a little Bruce Cassidy on the back. So I heard they were giving these away during the preseason games. They gave one of
that's what it was.
Of this, they gave one of the singer, which I think is Darnell or Carnell Johnson, something like that. He's their anthem singer, and there was a few other players in there that they gave these gold busts to. For preseason games. So somebody must have gone down to Vegas, went to a preseason game, got it, and ended up giving this to Goodwill. So yeah, our first podcast unboxing here.
Just for the record, Bruce Cassidy was born May 20th, 1965.
65, not 1995. So really bad typo on that one. My partner picked it up, and she's like, I'm pretty sure he's not younger than me, but I'll look into it.
He would not be an NHL head coach at the age of, what, 26, 27?
26 or 27?
Yeah, no, that's very... I think the last person to be that young, which he wasn't even that young, he was probably in his young, low 30s, was Paul Maurice.
Yeah.
I think he was like 27 or 28. I could be wrong.
27, I think, or 28. But yeah,
he's like the only person to really ever be that young to be an NHL head coach. So
absolutely. So for all those people who missed that beautiful unboxing and you're on the audio side right now, pop over to our YouTube channel.
See it.
Take a look.
It's a sight to behold.
It's a sight to behold.
Very happy to be a part of that. Thank you, Corey.
and please subscribe.
Yes, subscribe to our YouTube, to our Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So it's 2023. So we thought we would take some time to discuss today for the NHL and also for the world of hockey. A bit of a recap of 2022 and sort of what we were kind of looking forward to for 2023. So let's start with sort of a recap. So what are some highlights for you from this past 2022? So that would include the 2022, 2022 NHL playoffs, any international hockey, which this year we saw the World Juniors got canceled for December last year and then was rescheduled for August. And then now we are just about to complete since it's 2023, so we just saw the preliminary round of the 2023 World Juniors. So what are some highlights for you or lowlights? There's got to be some lowlights if anyone regular listeners would know about us and the Canucks. But anyways, we'll get there in a minute. How was 2022 for you in the world of hockey?
I mean, it was an interesting year. Like I believed that. Correct me if I'm wrong. The 21-22 season, was it a full season of the 82?
It was the first 82 game season.
So it was the first 82 game season that we saw, and first regular scenario playoffs, and we saw a very deserving team win the cup over the summer, the Colorado Avalanche. So that was a team I know we haven't seen win since 1996, 97, somewhere around there.
All I know is Ray Bork won the cup because he was
Ray Bork won the Boston. Cup. Patrick Waugh was still on the team, so if that tells you anything about the age of the team.
Forsberg. Was Paul Kariya on that team too?
Correct. I think he was on that team as well.
Solani as well, or was he after
Solani was on the team, I think, as well. But it's been a while, and it was cool to see a team win who hasn't won for a little while. I was really glad we didn't see the Tampa Bay Lightning win for a third year in a row. I mean, they're good.
Straight year in a row.
It gets a little stale after time. And you know how much we like to complain about staleness, the audience here. We definitely talk about it a lot with the WWE, so we don't want to talk about it with the NHL as well. But yeah, that was a good summer, and then we led into the World Juniors being in the summer for the first time because of the cancellation. Canada won gold in the summer. Then we had it felt like forever since hockey came back, and we saw some changes in the NHL. We saw some new coaching. We saw a lot of coaches leave. This was probably the one year that had the most coaching changes that we've ever seen. We are seeing a star emerge in Connor Bedard this year. Speaking of that, we're leading into the World Juniors now, and he's just been tearing it up even now after the summer he did, and now he is the goal leader, or at least he has the record. He will be. He has the record right now with a few others, and now he is the point leader now, I think. And regardless,
I think with Lindros, I believe he's tied with Lindros. Yep.
He certainly will be, because there's several more games to be played, and he seems to be getting 3 to 5 points a game. So, he's definitely shaping up to be what we expected, going into the draft. I think at this point, there's no question he'll be drafted first overall. I think you were saying, what's his name?
Fantilli.
Fantilli is going to be drafted probably second overall, which is interesting. You got two of the higher draft picks on the same team right now. That'll be really interesting to see. I don't know about you, but I think we've seen one of the most interesting starts to the season with things we didn't expect going in. A lot of teams doing a lot better than we expected. Other teams doing worse or a lot worse than we would have expected going into the season. And I think it's kind of a nice change of pace, to be honest. One thing we have to highlight is congratulations to Alexander Ovechkin for passing the Gordie Howe, and he is now at number two.
He's number two.
It's only a matter of time, it seems, at this point where he will actually move into that first spot. I think the analysts kind of have an expectation that it'll be around the 24-25 season that he has a good chance to probably pass Gretzky at that point, which will be cool because, I mean, for many, many, many years, I don't think anyone thought anyone was going to pass that record. So really cool
right, like
to
who
see.
Thought outside of Yager, right, who left. I mean, and you could argue that Yager would have easily passed. I mean, he was number 3 on the list, right? And he missed it. There were so many seasons he wasn't playing in the NHL, right?
Yeah.
So outside of Yager, you wouldn't think that even anyone was going to pass. I mean, like passing Gordie Howe was a big thing, right? Like 800 goals, right?
It took a long time for Gordie Howe to be passed by Gretzky, right? So if you think about that, like...
Exactly. Especially like, with the rule changes and the hockey, like the game is so different, right, than it used to be, right? Like goalies can actually save a puck now. So that's a
People
big
can
change.
actually lift the puck off the ice too. I think it's a big,
that too.
big difference.
It's a big one. Yeah, no. So I think those are some really good. I think some good positives from last year for sure. I think for a big thing, obviously, that we saw last year was, and we spent many episodes chatting about it when you're wearing a Team Canada hat, is the other side of the hockey culture, right? This year we saw Kyle Beach and the Chicago Blackhawks, right? This year we saw and we're still seeing the Hockey Canada scandals of what was believed from 2003 and 2018, with more probably to come. We saw 2 executives of Hockey Canada step down. We saw 2022. We saw who got fired. Cheveldayoff didn't get fired, even though he was involved in it. Why is his name escaping me with the mustache? The head coach. Oh my god.
Are you talking about New Jersey?
Quenneville.
Quenneville.
So Quenneville was fired from, believe it or not, that actually I believe that happened in 2022, not 2021.
January of 2022, I think.
It was right. There was that, right, and just a massive black mark. I think for that entire franchise, right, because you had a lot of players come out and say, not a lot, had a select few of players come out and say, you know what, everyone knew about it, and anybody who says they didn't know about it is full of crap, right? And I think that definitely tarnishes a guy like Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane. I know for me it has, right? They're both incredible hockey players, fine, but to me, it's completely tarnished how I look at them. And I agree with like folks like Brent Sopel who say there's no way they didn't know about it. I mean, Toews is the captain of the team, right? And was told to a coach, right? And like the hockey team and its coaches are so close. There's no way that didn't get out, right? So, and then with the Hockey Canada stuff, and we spent so much time this year talking about it, right? It's been a really interesting for that, right? And I'm hoping, one of my hopes for 2023 is that we do start to see some change, right? Like, yes, people were fired, executives did step down, right? And with Hockey Canada, even though they didn't really want to, it was definitely disturbing for Hockey Canada, like how they were sort of still really not taking responsibility for their actions. And you would hope with this new executive, I believe there's 9 of them, new board is really going to take this seriously. I know for sure that the new World Juniors team, they had to do a course before they could even go to the camp.
Right.
So that's a good change, right? And so yeah, that was certainly a bit of a black mark in 2022 overall for hockey, right? So my hope is that we don't talk about this in 2023, but I think that's just unreasonable. Like, I think we're gonna unfortunately keep hearing about this, right? Because we're at a point now where folks are just talking about it, right?
We're likely going to hear things like this for another few years to come. I think things are going to come out, and unfortunately, But I think it's we talked about this before. I mean, the transparency in the game is necessary. I think it's going to be something that we want to see more transparency in the game, and if we do see it, I think we're moving in the better direction than we were before. So, yeah.
Well, talking about it is what's important, right? Like that's how you move forward, right?
Yeah.
If you just keep, like we've talked about Dark Side of the Rink, that's what we called that episode, right? And we talked in depth about how it's the culture of silence, right? And that really needs to be broken. Like even though here locally in NBC, like we've seen stories in minor hockey, right, where
Yeah.
there's still racism and there's still pretty serious events that are happening, right? So you hope that at some point, like there has to be some sort of change, right? That talking about this anymore. We're talking about like how it's changed and how it's more inclusive for people, how there's systems of accountability, right? Because I think the biggest challenge still moving forward for NHL teams, especially, is that Hockey Canada was able to kind of be caught because they were federally funded. Each
Yeah.
NHL team is its own independent business, right? And they can do sort of things the way they want, right? So necessarily the accountability for each team doesn't necessarily, it's not going to match what Hockey Canada went through because they have public funding, right? So you hope that this is going to change how things are done, right? And I mean, you saw a bit of a result of it with Anaheim too, right? And Bob Murray I believe he resigned. He didn't get fired. They
Yeah.
opened a complaints line, and the Ducks dealt with it. And then now Pat Verbeek, I believe, is the GM now, right? And I'm not too sure what. I hope Bob Murray goes and gets the help he needs, right? Because it sounds like alcoholism was a big issue there, right? But so that's good to see, right? But you hope that we like we're talking more about the positives of the sport than the negatives. But it's 2022 was a big year for that black mark, right? And you hope that this is a bit of rock bottom. This is a bit of rock bottom, especially for Hockey Canada. Like I don't know what they're gonna do moving forward. But hoping in 2023 we see some positive results from this pretty dark year for hockey.
Absolutely. I hope that with more transparency, with more breaking that culture of silence, and just seeing more positive change, um, inclusivity, um, in the game, I think it's gonna be lead for us to talk about more positive things in the future. I'm looking forward to that. I don't want to be sitting in 2023 having all of these really negative conversations about not just Hockey Canada, but just hockey in general, because it's both a game that we love, a game that many people love across North America and across Europe and all over the world. Um, we want it to be a positive sport that brings people together, not getting to a point where less and less people want to be involved in it, engaged in it, and etc. So, we want to grow the game, not decrease the amount of people around and paying attention to it. So, on a more interesting note, that is a little bit more positive, but still negative. um, I guess. First, let's start with what was your number one moment, I guess, of the season, this 2022. What was the most exciting thing that you've seen over the last year?
It's actually it's more funny and it's the Shane Wright death stare for me. Because there was so much drama behind, like it was in Montreal, like it sounds like they wine and dine. They had fans with Wright jerseys in that building, and they drafted Slavkovsky, right? Like that was such a like I gasped. I haven't gasped at a draft in a long time. Like I couldn't believe it. So I think that was quite the moment this year, because the 2022 draft, as we discussed, was such a wild card, right? I didn't think it was that big of a wild card, right? Because you don't necessarily see a winger get picked over a center, especially.
True.
like a guy who was projected to be a number one center, right? So, and then of course there's the death stare, which has been used in memes to come for probably many years. So no, I think that for me was quite a moment. I was also happy for Colorado to win the cup. I mean, McKinnon gets his cup, right, and like Colorado's a team, as I've said most throughout the year, is a team that I want teams to copy. Right, they play fast, they play hard, they play skilled, and the organization does things the right way. Right, like when they sucked. Like they have a historically bad one of the in the record books. Their regular season is one of the worst in NHL history, and they got Cale Makar for that. Right, it was one of those things with the draft lottery where they should have gotten first overall. Imagine if they did, though. You wonder if they would have picked Makar, but that's a whole other discussion for another day. I'm so happy for Colorado because it goes to show you, like, as much as I don't want to say Chicago, I won't. Boston. Boston, they only have the one cup, but they did think the things the right way, and it pains me to say that.
You can say Tampa Bay too. I mean, Tampa Bay's done some things really well. You don't have to use Boston.
A lot better example than that, but I want to admit. But I think for me the 2022 draft was a really interesting one because. Like I think it really shows you just how each team values a player differently, right? Like all the analysts said Wright was going first overall, but Montreal believed that Slafkovsky was the better prospect, right? So that's one that's gonna be very fascinating to track you always have Matthews and Line and I think a while ago Tyler Seguin and Taylor Hall, right? Like this one's a real true one you can really look at because Nemec went second and then Cooley went third, which those guys were supposed to be there. Wright wasn't supposed to be, and it reminds me a lot of when Seth Jones was drafted and he went fourth overall too. And who went first overall that year? I can't remember. Oh, McKinnon. So we have another interesting sort of comparison we can see moving forward, and that's beyond obviously. As their careers go on, I'd be really curious to see how that goes. And I do wonder, the production of Nick Suzuki and how much that made them feel comfortable picking Slafkovsky because they feel like they have him. He's the captain now. That was another big kind of piece of news from 2022 is that Nick Suzuki, he was named captain of Montreal Canadiens, last captain I think since Max Pacioretty. So
I think
real big.
Shea Weber might have been captain.
You're right. No,
season.
You're absolutely right. Who's now a Vegas Golden Knight? Well, he's not, but contractually he is. Where's his gold? Where's his gold thing?
Where's his gold bust? Come on.
He's giving them $7.5 million in the LTI relief.
Going back to your draft moment, I gotta ask you this Death Stare thing. Does it stick with you a little bit? Like when you look at Shane Wright, when you hear the name Shane Wright, does that Death Stare, does that attitude kind of stay with you?
Yeah, it does for sure.
Yeah, okay.
I believe we've made a few jokes about that when because there's some interesting development questions this year with Seattle and how they're handling him. I think they made the absolute best. So they were smart, and then they didn't let him play. They sent him down on a conditioning stint, which is a bit of a loophole to get him down to the AHL because he is 18, so he's not actually supposed to go to the AHL. He would have to gone back to his team, which I believe is Kitchener. Kingston, thank you. But they got him on a conditioning stint because he hadn't played so long. So he got 2 weeks there, and then they released him to Team Canada, which is quite unorthodox. But hey, I mean, look at it. He's playing really well for Team Canada. And I think that it started out rocky, but I think Seattle,
it started out rocky,
has made the right choice. And I hope he goes back and continues playing well.
I do believe the loopholes worked nicely in their favor because I do think he turns 19 soon anyways, fairly soon. And I think that leads to him being able to go back to the AHL or go back to Seattle anyways. So it kind of works in their favor. I don't know if he would go back to the Kingston Frontenacs at all, or at this point he'll just stick with the AHL.
I mean, if you look at someone like Leon Draisaitl, he played half of the season for Edmonton, and then they sent him back to Kelowna. Was it Kelowna? Oh no, Prince Albert, and then traded to Kelowna for a Memorial Cup run. So it can happen.
It can.
I mean, Like we'll see for sure. But
We'll just wait and
anyways,
see. Yeah.
what is your most outstanding moment from hockey in 2022?
Oh,
Discussed.
it's a hard one to say. There's just so
For you,
many
isn't it?
moments. Sorry.
It's got to be Ovi for you, isn't it? Ovi
It's
passing.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's been something that I've been waiting for a few seasons, and I've always been an Ovi fan. Like I do remember having arguments with people way back when Ovechkin and Crosby were drafted, and a couple of years after, talking about who's the better player. And I think they're both different players, but I always had been sided with Ovi. I like his personality. I like what he brings to the game. I like the energy that he brings to his team and to the whole National Hockey League. Um, it's very well deserved in my opinion. He works extremely hard. He's a very talented player. And all his hard work's paid off, and he's now a legend in the NHL.
Well, he already
And
was, but he's cementing it for sure, right?
he's cementing it for sure.
And I think Ovechkin is a really interesting for 2022 actually in general, because I believe 2022 was when the Ukraine war started, right? I believe it was this past year.
Early this year, yeah.
Yeah, right. So, and I think that was another interesting thing that we talked about at length as well in 2022. And Ovechkin is actually a really good example, right? Is politics sort of in like meshing or intersecting with sports, right? Because we look at the World Juniors right now. Russia's not allowed. They weren't allowed the one in the summer. They weren't at the World Championships in May.
Right.
They were banned from the World Cup of soccer in Qatar this year. And there's multiple bans for Russia when it comes to sports, right? And and a key member when it comes to this sort of debate is Ovechkin, right? Like, yeah, it's like. As a hockey player, you can't deny it, right? You cannot deny his skill. You cannot deny, like you said, it cements his legacy, and he's very deserving of passing Gordie Howe, right? And because he's just shown throughout his career, he is just a perennial goal scorer and like a generational talent, right? Like him and Crosby for sure. Congrats to Sidney Crosby for getting the Order of Canada just recently. Tip of the cap for him. But I think on the other side for Ovechkin, he is a Putin supporter, has still maintained that he's a Putin supporter.
Yeah.
Now there's some complexities there, right? Potentially, if he does speak out against Putin, does his family get affected, right? That's a whole other ball of wax that we don't have time for on this podcast as usual. But I think what is interesting is 2022 really brought those conversations in of how sports and politics or the outside world and intersect. Like we also, we mentioned the school shooting in Texas. Unfortunately, there was many of them, but Steve Kerr from the Golden State Warriors had an impassioned speech, right? And that was actually, believed before a playoff game, right? So, 2022. I mean, it's always happened, right? Like an intersection of outside world and sports has always been a thing. But I think, from my recent memory, this is one of the most significant years too, because there was also the abortion ban in the U.S. too, right? And
That's right.
We talk about wrestling, right? And a lot of wrestlers were on social media being vocal about that, right?
Right.
So it was a really interesting year for that, right? And I think I bring it up because Ovechkin's one of those guys where it's like he has this a monumental thing happen in his career, but people are still questioning his political and personal life when it comes to his ties to Russia and Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I mean, there's some fairness to it and some unfairness to it. I mean, wherever your line is and how you feel about it. But, I think that's going to continue to happen more, as well as just like the personal side of things getting brought into sport. And I think we talked about this before, but like with the power of social media and Twitter and all these other things, you're seeing more personal sides of athletes, right? You're seeing their personal life on social media where, back in the 90s and the early 2000s, we didn't get a tip into their life and see what their lifestyle was and who they were, in that sense. So we wouldn't be having this conversation about Ovechkin back in 2005. But now in 2022, with everything going on, it really accentuates that and takes it away a little bit from his career, right? I think the interesting thing about Ovechkin that I've seen is, he seems to get better and better every year. Like, is he going to score 60 goals? Not necessarily, but his well-roundedness as a leader, as a player, his skill set on the ice, like, he just continues to improve. He gets stronger, he gets faster, he just balances out his game, and he's making plays and hitting goals that he may not have 10 years ago, and he just keeps getting better. And I think that's the most impressive thing that I could say about Ovechkin is, like, you see somebody who's well into his 30s now.
Is he?
He's approaching 40, and
Crazy.
I think he's 37 now. And
Yeah,
you
I
look
think
at a
so.
player, and you look at a player like that who continues to improve in different ways. Where they're talking about him now going after Gretzky and getting the record. I mean, this guy's going to score over 30, 35 goals again in his career at 37, and will probably continue to do that at 38, 39, and 40. We'll see, but he's maintained his health. He takes really good care of himself, and I mean, you typically see players decline at that age, and you keep seeing him improve, and that's the most impressive thing about his career. The second thing about Ovechkin that I wanted to ask you is I read something, and I don't know if it was true or not, but I heard something about potentially Ovechkin being banned from playing games in Canada. I don't know why this would be the case, but
I haven't heard anything about that. No.
I was reading this and I was like, what? Like, why would he be banned from playing in Canada? I don't know if it was on an international stage or if it was in the NHL. I'm not sure, but I thought it was kind of
Maybe for the World Cup, right? And that was another thing that was
Yeah.
unfortunate in 2022 is we had to wait another year for a World Cup.
That's
Speaking
right.
of you wearing a Team Canada hat,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
And one of the reasons, unfortunately, is because they want this to blow over so that Russia can be a part of it, right? Because World Cup's all about bringing in revenue for the NHL, right? And they want Russia there, which
Well,
is
you have to.
unfortunate.
Russia is a power in hockey, right? They are a very talented
You
team.
shouldn't delay. You got your we talked about this at length, obviously, but you've got your Crosbys and and your Dowdies, right? And your Petrangelos. That they need their best on best. We haven't had anything since Sochi in 2014, right? Because the World Championships are in May, which is the playoffs, so we never get a true team. We almost did in the last lockout. We were getting pretty close to that. But yeah, I know. So I think as we cap off 2022, and we move to the conversation about 2023. I'm really curious, like sticking on this topic, is what further conversations, sort of threading, the Chicago Blackhawks stuff, the Russia stuff, right? And, what else are we going to be seeing in 2023? I'm really curious about what's going to, how is the discourse going to change? Like, because, as we've talked at length about hockey is a team first sport. You don't put yourself before your team, yada yada yada. Is 2023 going to be the year where we finally start to see some personality out of our stars, right? Here in Vancouver, we have a very surly player in GT Miller who is not afraid to be an idiot on the ice, and then just say I don't give a damn to the media. It's none of your business, right? Which
Not to mention putting your coach in a tough spot too, like where
you'd be here for
Bruce
an hour.
Boudreau sits there and feels guilty for something that one of his players does. I don't know. It's wild, but
But do we need more of that though? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We the NHL is such a vanilla league. Its best player, which is Connor McDavid, is so bloody boring, right? Where you look at the NBA, it's the LeBron James, NFL. I'm just trying to think, Patrick Mahomes, right?
Well, this is the kind of culture thing that we've seen a little bit with fashion in the NHL. Has changed over the last 5 years, 10 years, where the NBA was kind of all known for, they have a fashion sense. They come in, it shows a little bit about their personalities. Sometimes they'd come in wearing, repping jerseys of teams of different sports that they pay attention to. It really, again, brings you and bridges you that side where you see their personality. And I think the NHL, it had always been very boring where you just see a white shirt, black suit, black tie kind of look. And now you're starting to see, the PK Subbans, Austin Matthews, the Roman Yossis of the world, who are walking in and having some fashion sense. I left out Brent Burns. I'm sorry, Brent. But yeah, like that are bringing in some fashion sense, and that's a really cool thing to see, because what we had never really seen. We'd never really seen any fashion sense or personality in clothing other than Mr. Don Cherry. I think that was the only thing we really saw anything.
That's not a good bar to, like, that's not a good like example, unfortunately.
But not a player, right? Somebody who is wearing clothes all the time, formal wear, etc. Whereas players, it was very like you put it, vanilla. And I like what we're starting to see a little bit of bridge into that. I would love to see a Toronto Maple Leaf player walk into Scotiabank Arena with the Raptors jersey of their favorite player. Like, that's cool. You're supporting your fellow team and in their city, and you're showing a little bit about yourself. And I think that's really says something about the game. So we're starting to see things like that. But I do agree, like, I mean, Ovechkin did bring a little bit of that personality into the game, and that's something that was always really interesting with him. Like, the hot stick and the cape that he wore and he always did a little bit of those antics where we didn't see a lot of other players do that. You look at Wayne Gretzky, you look at Nathan McKinnon, you look at Mario Lemieux and Connor McDavid, and they're all very serious, not so exuding a lot of personality type of players. Now we still only have a handful of those players. PK Subban, who now in 2022 actually did retire. So and now he's moving on into a personality, like a TV personality. He's working for ESPN now.
ESPN, yeah.
Just like we see Bieksa now working with Sportsnet and bringing some of his own personality and oomph to the TV screen. So I think
so I hope in 2023, cool. Like we keep, like, because we're having all these conversations. Like, I really want to keep, like, see more, like, and that includes the certain, like, Drew Doughty's surly as well, right? But like, we can't, like, people can't be fickle. You can't ask for personality and then when you get it, go, oh, I don't like that. It's like, as much as I disdain JT Miller and how he acts, at least he's giving us something. Right, you know what I mean? Like, and I love Bo Horvat. Don't get me wrong, but he's just like I can tell you exactly what he's going to say every single time he faces the
90% of the NHL. You can, they're gonna sniff a little. They're gonna say something along the lines.
They do the sniff all the time. You're right.
every player will sniff. They'll talk about getting pucks deep. They will talk about getting in the corners, playing hard, shooting. Like, I could recite. I could go in and do an interview for any analyst of any player, and just I played really hard. I'm out there putting in the effort for the team. I'm gonna, next time, next period, I'm gonna get out there and shoot the pucks on net. I gotta put in more effort and, get the pucks in deep and think about my teammates, and I gotta pass the puck more, and we just gotta get pucks on net, and if we put more. We push more. We put more pressure on the net. We're gonna score goals. All right, thank you.
Yeah. So what you're saying is maybe a bunch of NHLers have a cocaine habit. They just keep sniffing. Almost made you spit your water there.
You did, and I think what it is they sniff those salt things all the time, and it's messing up their nose. It's messing up their nose.
Smelling salts, yeah. So,
but you gotta admit, you do see this a lot.
That's why I was laughing. It's true. I can think of 1,000 examples of the nose sniff. Hashtag nose sniff. Let's get that.
Hashtag
trending.
nose sniff. Let's get that trending for sure.
See how that goes on Twitter. I mean, Elon Musk owns it now, so I'm sure it'll be fine. Sure, he'll do a poll of it at some point. Anyways, off of, I said, Twitter. So we'll move off this topic because I think it's definitely a lot, and I think it's something really to keep an eye on. And I'm looking forward to at the beginning of 2024 just to discuss that and see what that looks like. But so, what are you sort of looking forward to when it comes to 2023? Like, do you have any bold predictions, or like, is there anything that you're sort of looking forward to in 2023?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm really looking forward to seeing how. I will say the Pacific Division in the NHL right now is such a tight division. You look at Vegas, who's sitting on the top right now, I think with 51 points or something, somewhere around there. And then you got Canucks, I think we're in 12th, 11th or 12th. And they're not far off from a wild card spot. You know, they are. I think the analysts
It can be deceiving, my friend.
It can be deceiving. But I think that the analysts were saying too, like the amount of games we've played at the season, you would expect there'd be a bigger gap between the wild card and the last spot in the Pacific Division. And it's not out of question mathematically that it could happen, that some teams can push up. And at this point in the season is a little bit more surprising. So I think we've seen a lot of surprises in the Pacific Division and in the Western Conference, especially. You know, there are teams that are having better seasons and worse seasons than I expected. I mean, everyone anticipated Calgary would be way ahead of where they are right now. And they, to be honest, have had a bit of a lackluster season. It hasn't been great. You know, I heard against the Canucks yesterday. It was yesterday when they were playing they were saying Jonathan Huberdeau is like just now starting to really feel comfortable in his groove in Calgary, and that kind of sucks for them. But
he's never had a coach like Daryl Sutter before. That's probably why.
Probably why. That's an example. The Edmonton Oilers have really struggled with goaltending.
What a surprise! Sorry.
What a surprise! I was gonna say. I mean, they've been struggling with goaltending for the past 10 years.
They've been struggling as an organization for longer than that.
It doesn't matter what superstar you put on that team. I don't think they'll figure it out until the dysfunction clears in that organization. You know, I think they just recently moved up into the third spot in the Pacific Division, and who knows how long that lasts. I mean,
isn't that crazy? They have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, and they are barely in third place in the Pacific. That is wild.
Barely in third place. And then you have a team like, okay, the Calgary's in third place right now, so my apologies on that. But it's 43 points Calgary, 42 points. So that could easily flip a game to game. And then you have a team like Seattle, who, in my opinion, has had a much improved season over last year.
Better than I thought, that's for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
What a draft pick in Matty Beniers, I gotta say. Incredible player. Good one. But just the organization does a lot of the things in Seattle that I would love to see any team do. I think they're marketing well. We talked about this before, but I think they're marketing well. They're drafting well. They're developing their players, and they're doing the right things because they're getting better. And I think next year they will continue to get better. They're not Vegas in the sense that they just made the cup the first year because everybody just gelled. But on the other hand, for an expansion team, you don't necessarily have a good season, your second season in the NHL either. And they're doing all right. Like, they could easily take that third spot in the Pacific Division.
They have quite a few games in hand right now on all those teams, right?
They have 4 games in hand on Calgary right now, 4 games in hand on Edmonton, and they have 1 game in hand on Colorado, who's sitting in the second wild card spot. You know, sorry, go ahead.
How many games in hand do they have on Vegas?
5. And right now, 5 games in hand would give them 10 points if they won all of them, which would put them at 50, which is 2 points behind Vegas. Vegas has 52 points right now, and Seattle has 40. I don't think they're going to catch up to Vegas. That's not my expectation, but sitting in that top 3 in the Pacific Division is a huge feat for them. I think that well-deserved pat on the back if they do finish the season that way, and even if they do slip into the wild card, that's okay too. I'm really looking forward to seeing where this team goes in the next 3 or 4 seasons. And then, you know, the 2 sleeper teams that we mentioned in the conference this year are exactly that. Dallas Stars at 52 points and the LA Kings at 48 points. Those 2 sleeper teams for the Western Conference are the ones we mentioned earlier.
Had a 9-8 game with Seattle, to which that got Cal Peterson sent down. What a wild year. And that's actually something interesting, too, that we didn't even chat about was offense. At the tail end of 2022, when we talked about the season premiere, for this 2022-2023 season, I was curious about, will the offense go up or down, because last season, 2021-2022, was the first full season after COVID, so it made sense to me why the offense was up so much. Well, the trend is certainly seeming that scoring is going to be up and it's going to stay that way in the NHL. However, usually in the second half of the season, it does slow down. So 2023, the first half of the 2023, which season, I'm kind of curious to see if it actually does go down to what we're historically used to seeing. But I mean, like, I would not have thought that a 9-8 game would happen. I mean, it happens in junior sometimes, but not in the NHL.
Not often, no.
No, I can't. I'd be curious to know when the last
seen
9.
Several games this season already be in that 7-8 mark of goals, like in all over the NHL, and that's really surprising. So
games that go like well over like 15 goals combined, right? Like I can think of a few, well, not 15, but pretty damn close, right? Like the few Canucks games that are like, I think they beat Anaheim 8-5, right? Which is unheard of.
So you want to move into the Canucks now, because the interesting. Not yet.
I've got a few global things I'm actually quite curious about with 2023. Globally, I'm actually one of my hopes for 2023 is that franchises like sort of forward, right? Because the Canucks are a tire fire, Edmonton tire fire, Calgary actually seems like it's going to be moving in a good direction. Sounds like they're going to get a new arena, which is great. Toronto's fine. Montreal is actually looking quite good, and I hope that trend continues. The biggest curiosity is going to be Ottawa. And then of course there's Winnipeg in the middle. Sorry, Winnipeg fans. Winnipeg too. I'm hoping they pick a direction. And I hope they pick the rebuild route. I think they had their team. So anyways, like, I'm just so tired of not seeing Canadian teams reach the conference finals, right? We got it last year with Edmonton. I want that to be a consistent thing, right? There's a few Canadian teams that are sort of flustering that sense with Edmonton and Vancouver, and Ottawa to a certain extent. I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but Eugene Melnyk sort of ran that team very interestingly. A big story for 2023, I think, for me, is who is going to buy, or whom in a consortium is going to buy the Ottawa. I wish Daryl Cates would sell the Edmonton Oilers. Is going to buy the Ottawa Senators. It's going to be a really interesting purchase because there's our boy Ryan Reynolds, who is circling and wanting to be involved in an ownership group, to a point where the NHL has said to any buyer that they should have Ryan Reynolds involved. Because you look at what he's done with Wrexham FC in Wales and how he's really put that team pretty much on a global scale. It was a small little team in Wrexham. I watched the series. It was enthralling. I'm following the team. I didn't know who they were last year. Didn't know they existed. So I think that's going to be really interesting. And if Ryan Reynolds does find his way onto the Ottawa Senators, which I think he will, what's he going to do for that team? Because they've always been seen, like when it comes to the Ontario, like they've always seemed second fiddle to Toronto and Montreal in that area.
They've always been second tier, and the problem is they've always been low tier in all of the Canadian teams. Like when you think of all the Canadian teams, Ottawa's kind of like, oh yeah, the Ottawa Senators.
Well, even though they had an incredible team with Alfredson, Spezza, and Heatley, right? Like they went on their cup run. They got smashed by Anaheim. Oh, jeez, listen to much Roman Reigns. Listen to much Roman Reigns saying smash.
Him.
I did hear his promo the other week. That's probably why. But yeah, so that for me is gonna be a really fascinating storyline. A big one for me is who wins the Connor Bedard sweepstakes. Who gets him, right? Because if you look at him right now in junior, he is putting up numbers better than McDavid. Is he McDavid? I would have said no, but I mean, like, it's looking like it, right? I mean, he's not as fast as McDavid to my much, but I mean, like, the guy can shoot that puck.
I feel like the two things that really stand out from what I'm seeing from him is his hockey sense on the ice, and his intelligence is incredible. It's well above some of the best players in the NHL right now, and his hands, like his ability to shoot from anywhere.
His shot is better than McDavid's was in his draft.
And just being able to shoot from anywhere is what I'm seeing. Like, it's not just having a good shot. That's great, having a good shot, but if you can take a shot from a position where you're not in the best position to take a shot.
Look at the goal against Austria.
Yeah.
I don't. Did you see that?
Yes.
I showed it to you, right? Like
Yeah.
he's almost at the goal line, and he like it was incredible to see his vision, his eyes, because he was like, am I gonna pass it? And he's like, no, I'm actually just gonna shoot it. And like I couldn't imagine having that skill set where I'm like, I'm almost at the goal line. I think I'm gonna shoot it top corner, and he did it.
and the guy can. You have playmakers and you have goal scorers. He can do both equally as good. He's passing and hitting passes tape to tape that I wouldn't even think some of the best NHL players can do. And I think, holy, like
he could easily like have like apply for exceptional status and be totally fine in NHL and probably thrive really. If he's in the Canucks, maybe not, but that's a whole other conversation.
But my guess, I told you this the other day, my guess for the sweepstakes is Anaheim's going to win this year. They're going to get the first overall draft pick. They are going to pick Connor Bedard, and Anaheim is going to be the next dynasty team. That's my guess.
Like you said, they got Zegras, they got Zellweger, who's also playing for Team Canada.
Who's also playing very well for Team Canada right now. Yeah.
I guess you could say Troy Terry. He's 26, 27, so he's still quite young. Jamie Drysdale, right? Like Mason McTavish too, right? Like if they do win the sweepstakes, which they are certainly trying to, although Chicago's I think lost 11 or 12 in a row, so they're certainly starting to show.
They're only 4 points between the two, and Columbus is in that area too. So I mean,
could you imagine that could be like Rick Nash level if Columbus got him? Hey,
yeah.
Like it could change that franchise, because like I know that's what like that really helped Columbus when they got Nash, right? It really helped that team.
I mean,
like if they could get Bedard, it would help, because right now their first line center is Boone Jenner, so not really ideal. Right, they have got Johnny Gaudreau, right? So, and I'm sure Jarmo Kekalainen is sort of tired of not really being in the playoffs, right? Like he tried that one year where he traded literally every single draft pick. I think he had like a 6th and 7th round pick left in one draft, and he swept Tampa, so I mean that was kind of cool. But I'm sure Columbus, I do think about Arizona too.
I was gonna say, if you look at it right now, you have 5 teams that are sitting in your bottom 5. From top to bottom, you've got Arizona, San Jose, Columbus, Anaheim, and Chicago. I was just about to say too, Arizona is still in that picture right now, right? They're still in that picture that they could pick them up.
You're gonna not believe when I say this, but my tune is changing on the Arizona Coyotes, if you can believe it or not.
Tell me about it.
I'm going to shock the listeners, because you know how much I've hated them. You know what? I've actually been starting to follow them a little more, and been following some of the local media out there. And as much as the ownership is not ethical, which I mean that's most of
NHL
businessmen, it looks like they're starting to actually put together a plan that's actually going to make this team finally successful in Arizona. They went to city council in Tempe, that's where they're sharing the building right now with the Arizona State team. Mm-hmm. But still utterly ridiculous that they are in that building, but let's move on from that. But it is looking very good that they actually will get their brand new, completely funded by the owners building in the next 3 to 4 years. And they're fairly confident that if they build this building that it's actually going to be successful, because it sounds like it's closer to where the population, because Glendale was so far out. That was one of the biggest reasons. I mean, the football stadium's there, but it's football, and like Americans will do anything to watch their football. It's like me with hockey. I'll go anywhere. But it's closer to what is the main city there? Not Arizona. Phoenix, closer to Phoenix. It's just like what they used to be called.
Which they were the Phoenix Coyotes at one time.
Exactly. So maybe they'll change their name to Phoenix again. So I think it's changed on that. So the referendum's in May. So that's one of the stories of 2023 I'm really curious to follow, because on the city council meeting, the city council voted 7-0 to send it to a referendum. Not a single councillor or mayor was against it. So it seems like the city is actually quite excited to have the team there. We're really curious to see what that looks like, and if they get Bedard, it'd be a shame he had to play in a 5,000 seat building. As you can see, my eyes twitching talking about it. But it means if it ends up turning out that they're going to have a brand new building, and he really could grow the game out there, right? Let me look at Austin Matthews, right? It's an example of putting these teams in those markets, right? It can produce something, right? So yeah, that'd be so the Bedard sweepstakes. Well, the 2023 draft seemed interesting in general. I mentioned it a lot too. Is where does Matvei Michkov go? His season actually has not been going as well as folks thought, but unfortunately in Russia, their development model is if you're not an adult and you don't keep scoring, you don't play. So he's been moved around a bit, which is unfortunate because you got to let this kid play. And, we are missing, due to this Ukraine conflict or Ukraine war, he hasn't been able to play on the international stage and get exposure there as well. I think it's also difficult for people even to go watch games in Russia, to my knowledge.
Yeah.
And there's still some fear too of people actually still drafting Russians due to the conflict and maybe any potential complications there. As I believe in the 2022 draft, there was a couple Russians that got drafted a lot later than they were supposed to because of what's going on. People are very uncertain of what that looks like, right? There was a scenario last year where a Russian goalie prospect from Philadelphia basically wasn't allowed to leave the country. So it's very tense, and I am kind of curious how that's going to play into Matt Michkov, because he's supposed to be the best prospect out of Russia since Ovechkin. Speaking of Ovechkin, but the other caveat is to take the Russian factor out of it. He is signed with his Russian team till 2026. So if you're a bad team and you need a player before that, right? I guess I'm kind of curious where he's going to fall, right? Because Fantilli's supposed to go second. There's a Swedish prospect named Leo Carlson.
Yep.
He might go third overall, which wasn't talked about, right? And I wonder how much Carlson's rise is because of the Michkov situation, right? Because just last year, before when the World Juniors was happening. In December of 2021, it was Michkov and Bedard neck and neck, right? Not neck and neck, but it was pretty darn close. Yeah. Very, very close. And now I've seen him outside the top 5, right? Yeah. Which is it could be really. So that's one story. I'm really curious to follow for the draft itself, and of course for Bedard. Before I get on to the Canucks, is there anything else that you're excited about when it comes to, or curious about when it comes to 2023 in hockey scenario?
I think my biggest curiosity is this. We're talking about the Bedard sweepstakes, and we're talking about it being a sweepstakes for a reason. This is a generational player.
It's a turtle derby.
It is, and it's a generational player. It's a player that you only come by every so often, and I remember this kid's been talked about since he was 13 years old, and
that's right.
Playing for North Van actually, and
Winter Club, yeah.
Yeah, before he was even considered in the WHL or anything like that, before he was drafted, I know this kid's been talked about. I watched videos of him play, and my biggest curiosity is, will somebody try to trade up? Will somebody make a move?
No.
Big
There's
enough
no way you're
for
trading
this?
that first overall pick. There's no way anyone's giving that away.
I wouldn't think so. I wouldn't think so.
Lindros level.
That it's really hard to believe, right? There's no way that anybody would do it, but we've seen some crazy things in the past and it happened in the NHL, and I'm really curious to see if
Lindros. Lindros is the example, and my hope is that he's such a diehard Canucks fan, and he says, whoever drafts me, trade me to the Canucks.
He's already said he wants
sell the farm. Sell the farm. I don't care if we suck. We already suck anyway. So what's the difference? Just trade everyone to get Bedard. I don't care if we give it would be. It would be an absolute godsend if the Canucks won the lottery, but they won't, because we never have and never will, because we're the Canucks.
Could this be the year? No, I'm kidding.
Oh my god! I got stuck in that trope every single year in the lottery.
But who honestly, with all the teams that are there, you look at your teams that are sitting in those bottom feeder positions. Where would you like to see them go? Where would you most excitingly like them to go? Columbus?
Yeah. I think. Because who else is down there? There's Chicago. I don't like Chicago.
Chicago's had enough limelight over the last 10 years or 15 years.
What's down there? There's Anaheim. I'd love to see Anaheim too, because I'd like him to go to Columbus or Anaheim, because I like what I like teams that do what they're supposed to do. And Anaheim, Pat Verbeek came in and said, "Nope, we suck." So I'm trading Hampus Lindholm. I'm trading everybody that can get me draft picks, right?
Yeah.
But kept obviously he still has a foundation that you see the Canucks can take notes from Arizona.
Anaheim.
Actually, some teams could take notes from Arizona. But anyways, Anaheim was like, we still have good young players, but we still suck. So there's no point in trying to get into the playoffs. So I'm gonna trade Hampus Lindholm, right? Like that's I like to reward teams that do it properly. Like they're not outrightly tanking. They're just realizing they suck and they need that's they literally signed John Klingberg hoping they could flip him, right? And Klingberg was like, fine, like I'll come to you, I'll get 25 minutes a night and I'll go play for a contender, right? And then Anaheim can reap the rewards of that, right? So yeah, I hope Anaheim or Columbus. I want him to go to a market where he can really help out. Right? I was shocked that Detroit made their moves this offseason when they did. I thought they would wait one more year. Same with Seattle. I thought those were two teams that might stick around the bottom just to see what can sort of fall to them, right? Because I mean, Detroit could have gotten. Could you imagine Connor Bedard in Michigan? Like, holy moly!
I know we talked about at the beginning of the season that Seattle and Detroit were potential options.
And Seattle, like you'd have a Beniers, Wright, and Bedard.
Bedard and Wright, who've played together in the World Juniors, so there's a comfort there. But that's not happening. Seattle's playing too well. They're not going to sit in that bottom.
Which I get it. Like tanking. They are. I think Seattle's a complex situation, kind of like Vegas, and you can't suck too long because I know Seattle is really wanting an NBA team back, right? And Vegas now has the football team, but they had so much success that it was okay, right? Like it was unprecedented, but like their worry was that if they didn't get good enough,
and they sell out games still like every night. So realistically, they know
it's a bloody party in that rink. It's more about the atmosphere than it is the game.
Best arena in the NHL. But Seattle is in that sense that as an expansion team, you want to make a little bit of a splash too. You don't want to suck for so many years. You go back and you think about Carolina, Nashville. Those are probably the two most recent expansion teams that I can think of too. When I was a kid, and they were bad teams for a very long time. Columbus too, for a very long time. And the market doesn't really want to see that, right? The NHL doesn't want to see it. Outside markets, because you do gain fans from other outside markets. I'm a prime example of following Vegas for many reasons, and you gain those outside fans if you can show that you make a splash in the NHL. And I think Seattle wants to do that. They've got good ownership. They've got they're in a prime place to be for hockey. And they want to be able to, turn things around and make themselves into a contender within their first 5 years. I don't think they want to be somebody who's like, 10 years down the road, Seattle's going to be last in the end. They don't want to be looked at like that. So I think they're doing the right thing. But it would have been cool. But you know what? They'll figure out other ways.
Who knows? So I'm really curious where they go. Like I can see a scenario where he goes to Arizona, because actually. We've discussed this before. Outside of Vancouver, Arizona is actually a team that's been hurt by the draft lottery more than it. Like again, they've sucked for so long and never drafted first overall, which is impossible to think of because New Jersey and Edmonton's gotten 7 first overall picks somehow. But
so then should they change the way that the structure is for the draft? Should the last team in the NHL just automatically get it?
Just toss it out and do what they do in soccer and just. Do signing season. I don't know. Maybe that's better. I don't know because this system's kind of stupid sometimes. When I think about it. Right? I say it selfishly because obviously Bedard would just come to Vancouver. But speaking of Vancouver, we'll I won't spend a lot of time on this because just go back to our previous episodes. You'll know how I feel about this team. I'm unfortunately attached to this team. You, Corey, have been smart and been able to detach yourself. As you know, this year I've had many times where I've messaged you and said I'm done with this team, and then I'd go turn the game on. So it's I have a problem, but it's okay. I think my hope for 2023 is that the Vancouver Canucks stop being the budding joke of the NHL. This season has been exhausting. Half of 2020, well, not even like the back half of 2022 after the old regime got fired, to this season, it's been an absolute joke. Like, let's just be honest about this, right? Like, yeah, okay, fine. What are they? How many points are they out? 4 or 5? Who gives a damn? Like, look at the team. Like, they don't care about each other. They have a toxic locker room. The organization is clearly toxic. I mean, they got a bloody human rights complaint against them, right? Where
Yep.
you can debate whether that's valid or not. Whatever. I mean, the fact that they even have it is shocking. You have an owner like, and that's the thing. Like, I'm like the 2023 trade deadline is going to be very telling for me as a Canucks fan. I think it's another one that's going to sort of maybe determine I might need to go seek counseling and get myself out of this relationship. Is like, what are they? If they are,
Yeah.
let's say three points out of a playoff spot, we trade Bo Horvat. They need to. They need to trade a lot of people actually, because this team sucks. It's not good enough, and it boggles my mind that some people see the Canucks. I don't know, what is it, 4 points out, and go, "Well, it's absolutely deplorable. They should
Well,
be
regardless, the way you look at it, you have a good point, because even if they're 4 points out, even if they got into that wild card spot, even if for some miracle they got into the third spot and were in the actual third spot of the Pacific Division, are they going to do anything with it? No, they're not going to have a good playoff run. They're gonna crumble, and they're gonna fall. They're gonna fall in the first round. So I would we talked about this in the beginning of the season. I'd rather see them tank the season and have a chance at the draft pick, But nope, they're not gonna tank. They're gonna sit in 20th. They're gonna get another 15th, 16th overall pick. They're not gonna pick somebody too good, and
this is the thing that kills me is like there's that, but like I'm just so tired of being a fan of a team that's just a joke, right? Like it unfortunately happened when Eugene Melnyk was running the Ottawa Senators, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's been talked about ad nauseum with Daryl Cates running Edmonton. This is why, like I said, like I want the Canadian teams to figure it out, because like we like Canada, we are so proud to be hockey fans. It is our sport. We say it. I believe it was played in England or something like that. It's up for debate, whatever. Like, we as Canadians identify with this sport, yet every single bloody year it's an American team that wins it, with mostly Canadians on it. That's changing a little bit for the most part. Like, it's our sport.
Last time that a Canadian team won the Stanley Cup was in 1993. So
Canadians, funny enough, and it looks like they're probably outside of Toronto, if they can somehow figure out how to get out of the first round, which is, we'll see.
Another thing,
Another thing, but it's just like I just need my team to not be a joke, because if you look at that 2010-2011 team, they actually were a shining example of how to run a team, right? They were being innovative. They were getting sleep doctors. They were doing all these things that other teams were doing that teams now copy because it was so innovative, right? Like, that's what I want. And you know what? It doesn't mean we have we need to be like, well, let me rephrase. I want to be like Tampa Bay. Every single year we are discussing not
contendership,
discussing the cup, but it's guaranteed we're in the second and third round, right? And we had that back when Aquilini bought this team. We were, Chicago unfortunately was our enemy, and we kept getting, but like, it was not a doubt we were going to at least make the second or third round. It has been, what, 11 years since the 2011 team, and we are still going, well, if it's you literally just said it, if we have, by a miracle we make the playoffs. Like, that is an absolute joke, right? And I'm tired of saying that about this team that I care about so much, right? So 2023, if you are kind to me, you will give me some semblance that this management team is not being controlled by this owner, because if they are close to the playoffs and they don't trade Bo Horvat, that tells you who's running this team, right? Show me that all these hires, all the staff that they've hired over the summer, and all these words they are saying that actually mean something. Trade Bo Horvat, trade him for something that's going to make this team better for, fine, this season, great, but for the next years plus, right? The reports are out there that Pettersson's the only untouchable. Sure, all I've ever heard from this team is that this, and that. Like, Rutherford comes out and talks about accountability, yet then the player like JT Miller does his things and doesn't get benched. Like, it's absolutely like just mind-boggling. So anyways,
well,
off my rant, which I've been waiting a long time to talk about.
I just want to say, like, in the beginning of the season, end of last season, when we talked about this regime changing, we talked about it, and we had a little glimmer of light, glimmer of hope that this regime would make a difference and do something different.
It's been squashed.
It's been completely squashed. Every time I see Patrick Alvin's face on the screen, I snicker. I look away. I think he's a joke. I don't feel good when I see Jim Rutherford. And does that not tell you something? When you see these people and they kind of disgust you a little bit, when you see Aquilini, it disgusts you. It really lays true to what you're saying. The team is a joke. You look at it and you laugh. You're like, it's not serious. Like, you can't take this team seriously. And you know what? There's been a little bit of, they're doing a little bit better. There's a pendulum swing after the Christmas and the New Year, but at the end of the day, I'm seeing the same tendencies with the team. They're still making the same mistakes.
10 years after you almost win the cup, how is that acceptable? That, we won 3 games in a row. Woohoo! Like, that should not be the standard. That's okay.
When you win 15 games in a row, then we can talk.
Maybe, or like you're just expected to make the freaking playoffs, which you should be after, like, you should have gone through a rebuild cycle in that time if you were a competent organization. Like, But
every time they get questioned with that freaking rebuild question, they say no.
Like
they don't even say no. They're not even like honest with their fans. They can't even just tell people no, we're not rebuilding. They just are like, well, I don't know. No.
And that's the thing. If you spend all this money, which Aquilini did on this fancy new management team, which if you actually look at like successful structures in the NHL, that's actually how you're supposed to do it, the way they set it up, like, right? But if it's the same person at the top giving the same direction, it doesn't matter. You could have anybody there, and they're going to make the same mistakes, and they're saying the same things from the previous regime, which is very concerning.
100%,
right? So like. 2023 trade deadline is going to be very telling on who has control of this team. If Bo Horvat does not get traded, to further that, if he does get traded, what he gets traded for is also very telling, right?
True.
Because I can very much see it being like a Seth Jones for Ryan Johansson type of trade, and we need way more than that, right? Like, that was a good trade for both sides. Maybe you could probably look at that trade and actually have a discussion about it, right? Should Nashville have gotten more? But like, I can see them doing that kind of trade because they're so afraid. They're not allowed to actually make the moves they need to make this team better, because it's very, very clear that this team, unfortunately, needs to go through another rebuild, right? Or some sort of like tear down, but you keep a few. Like, that's why I brought up Anaheim, right? Like, Anaheim is the good example of, like, they suck, but they're keeping their core. They're keeping their core players. They've got their good young core players, and then they know they need to fill around them, and they have a certain time frame before the Zegras and the Drysdale and the McTavishes get too old, right? You do it now before it's too late, right? Because like, if they're smart, they're going to trade Bo Horvat for some futures and hopefully a good young prospect that can come in the next few years. But like, you also have to replace Bo Horvat, right?
You do.
If you're intending to not suck, right, you have to replace Bo Horvat. It's really hard to replace a second line center who scores 30 to 40 goals a year, right? Because he's now hitting his prime, right? And I mean, it's actually smart. If you're not going to sign him, it's like actually a good time to trade him, because this is probably the highest value you're going to get for him, right?
For him, absolutely. Especially goals, after right? He's you and I have talked about this a lot. He's having that potential free agency year. He knows he's going to go into free agency, and he's playing at that level that he knows, if I play this well, I'm going to get an $8 or $9 million contract. And he knows that.
What they should have done with JT Miller last season.
Which they should have done with JT Miller.
And they didn't. They signed him, and now we have this cancer attached to our bloody team for 8 more years.
Let's move on for him and say this. I'm at the point where, like, I look at the team, and I'm like, I wouldn't even mind letting go of Pettersson. Not letting go, but trading him for something. Like, they want to hold on to Pettersson. I get it. But they need to rebuild. And to trade him for good prospects and good young talent. How old is Pettersson now? There you go. How old is Pettersson now? 25, 26?
Oh, he's younger than that. I think
24?
He's 23. He's drafted 2017, so whatever the math is there.
That would be 5 years, so you'd be 23, 24. Okay, yeah, so there you go. So he's 23, 24. He's getting to that point where Bo Horvat is right now. He's getting to the point where in 2 to 3 more seasons, he's going to be in his prime.
It's unreasonable to think you're actually going to, like, Zegras is 22, right?
Yeah.
Easily think in the next 3 to 4 years, Anaheim can act, especially if they get Bedard or Fent, someone like high caliber. It's actually quite reasonable to think they could probably get a good team together before they get full out of their prime. Not the same for Pedersen. Like you said, he's 24. He's going to fall into his prime in the next 2-3 seasons. And like, it's not really reasonable if you look at this team to do that. Yes, they have Demko, but again, he's another guy that you're actually going to get better. And especially the length of his contract, he has got 4 more years of that $5 million cap hit. Like, are you going to be good in that period? Because like, once he's up, he's going to be making Vasilevsky numbers, right?
And like, think about these players too. Like, this team does not think about the players. Like, I've seen this so many times too. Like, look at the amount of time that these players have put in for the organization, the hard work that these players put in for the organization, and you know damn well you're sitting there, you're not going to be a contender. You're not going to be a contender for the next 2 to 3 years, 4 years of their contract. Why don't you do the players a favor as you're also doing yourself a favor? Trade them to a contender. Think of how much of a difference Demko would make on Edmonton versus us.
Yeah.
Could we get something back from Edmonton? Yeah, we could. Regardless of who he gets traded to, there are ways you can get something back for a goaltender like that.
Mm. Or Colorado too.
Or Colorado. And they all there's teams that are contenders that need goaltending, and Demko deserves to be on a contending team. He is that level. So you're just wasting away his control. You're just wasting away his career. Same with Horvat. You're wasting away his career. Same with Besser. You're just wasting these guys' career. And then you're being selfish, and you're just holding onto these players, and you know these players are going to be loyal to you because you know you started with them. You know, they started with you, and they want to resign. They like the team. They like their teammates. But realistically, they could have a better career somewhere else. And in that time, you can start rebuilding, and you're going to get something back from them.
What's going to happen is they're going to trade Bo Horvat, and they're going to give the C to JT Miller.
So they're going to trade Bo Horvat for a bag of pucks, because that's what always the Canucks do. Or they're going to let Bo Horvat go right till the end of the season, hoping they can get that 3 to 4 game stretch and actually make the wild card. They'll make the wild card. They'll get knocked out in the first round, and then they won't trade Bo Horvat, and then we'll be back at square one. And Bo Horvat will go sign with the Tampa Bay Lightning to win another cup there, and then the Canucks will be sitting exactly where they were before, and Bo Horvat will have a Stanley Cup over his head, saying,
no kidding, eh?
You know what I mean? It feels like the same old song and dance all the time. And
like, think about it too, is that, like, you know, let's just say last year, for example, like, because they did the math, and if, you know, with the points percentage that Bruce Boudreau had, it would have been right where Nashville finished, right? Let's just say, for example, they did get a Nashville spot. Guess who they played in the first round last year? Avalanche.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Happened to the Nashville Predators. They got swept. So you really want to, like, sacrifice your future for 2 home playoff games, and really, like, Nashville did fine, but, like, you weren't beating the Colorado Avalanche, right? So you, like, anyways, let's pause here. Overall, I think 2023 is going to be a very interesting year for hockey, for my Vancouver Canucks, and for the NHL, with some ownership questions. Seeing how many more goals Ovechkin can score, seeing how politics is going to further affect the sport, seeing how the culture of hockey is going to change that, and then hopefully we see some more personality in the year to come. So, anyways, what are you folks excited about? Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and not to forget, really excited to see where this draft lottery hits. Who wins that draft lottery pick? I think that's gonna be really exciting.
That's a big one for sure. But what do you folks think? What's your most excited thing you're looking forward to in 2023 when it comes to hockey? What was a highlight for you for 2022? Leave a comment here below on YouTube. Leave a comment on Fire Podcast, but I think we'll stop the NHL talk there, and we'll move over to what we're thinking about when it comes to wrestling.
All right, thanks guys. We'll catch you on the next one.